So as I mentioned before, but some of you might be just joining, this is one of our workshops specifically about Copilot in Loop, the Microsoft application. So with me being the MC, I get to hand over to our guest speaker. We've got Aidan. He's joining us. He's the manager of Microsoft Alliances for APAC region for PAX8. So they are our partner that we work with, the KMT, and he holds with us all the information that is going to set you free and get a lot of efficiencies out of these two tools, being Copilot and Loop. So I'm going to pass over to Aidan now. Welcome, Aidan.
Awesome. Great to be here, Sarah. And thanks everyone who's able to join us once again for the session today. I'll just take control of the screen and just move on with some slides to walk through the agenda of what I wanted to cover off today. Still create a bit of a baseline, as there may be some people who are new to the Copilot conversation on the call. So I just wanted to take a couple of moments just to talk through why we're here today, why we're talking about Copilot before getting a bit more specifically into Loop. So from the agenda today, I do want to just have a quick mention of the Copilot opportunity for Microsoft 365, but not too long on this. I do want to focus most of the time. I think most people have been getting value from these sessions on the hands-on labs or the hands-on experiences and examples that we've been working through. So I just wanted to go through that, talk specifically to Loop. It may be an application that people have heard of, maybe only recently, probably not had too much hands-on experience in the long term with it. So I just wanted to kind of cover off some of the key scenarios within that one as well. But the theme that we want to work through today, as with a lot of things with Copilot, is increasing your productivity, increasing collaboration, and reducing down the speed to get to the outcome that you want. There's a huge opportunity within AI in general, look at using a Copilot lens today of how can we increase the velocity at which we're working, removing any things like writer's block, removing things like accessing different stakeholders in the business and making sure there's less steps in order to get the same result at the end of the day done. So there's more time in your day to do more, or even better, get to knock off a little bit earlier, but I'll let everyone's bosses approve that one beforehand. So to kind of have a look at just creating a bit of a baseline around Microsoft 365 Copilot, if you've been not using Copilot previously, but using ChatGPT or know people that do, Copilot is using fundamentally the same technology under the hood, these large language models, which really the strength lies in using your natural language to interact with the technology in order to get a natural language response back, or whichever response is built into that motion. So in Excel, be more numbers based. You might get an output as far as coding if you're in a developer space, but largely for the examples today, we'll be using natural language as a response from the model. Where it starts to differentiate itself from things like ChatGPT or from different applications in the ecosystem, like Google's got Gemini, Twitter's got Grok, there's a few others working around the place, a few more brand names popping up time and time again. We're in a unique position here because Copilot, if you're in the Microsoft 365 space, which a lot of us here in Australia are, these tools are going to tie directly into your data where it already resides. So if your data is within Microsoft 365, the Copilot app speaks natively to those licenses if you've got the paid app version. And there's also quite a few connectors speaking to files that are on Azure or a range of other different file types that you might have, but the bulk might be sitting in your SharePoint or your OneDrive, and that's where you're able to speak to it really natively without additional connectors.
Wow, that's really, really helpful. Aidan, I'm just going to interrupt just for one quick second, just to remind people that feel free to interact with Aidan as much as you wish to across the workshop today. So you can pop questions in the Q&A at the top or the chat, and we'll be monitoring those, and I can feed them to Aidan as appropriate throughout. So I'll pass back to Aidan now, but feel free to pop your questions in there.
Awesome. No worries. No, thanks very much, Sarah. Yeah, more than happy to try and answer any questions along the way, but we'll also have some time at the end where we can cover them off as well, just to make sure everything is covered. From the theme of the video and from what we've spoken about already, really what we want to get through at the end of the day is a lot of collaboration through Loop. The demo that I'll be working through today will be mostly from the lens of Copilot within Loop. So how does it start to bring this ecosystem together? But it's where probably some of the confusion lies in where Loop starts to fit in and Pages fits into the ecosystem of Microsoft 365, because it is starting to go across a whole bunch of the different apps, bringing these together in the spirit of increasing that collaboration. So that's where the loop starts to come, the meaning of the name starts to come into a bit more of its own, is because it's looping together all of these different experiences, starting to let you collaborate with different sections of these documents on your emails, within Teams windows. You don't necessarily need to find where is that Word file, where is that PowerPoint file. This is a way to create that collaboration so you can get that document to the next place as quickly as possible. So that real-time content creation and generation is something which is really critical to utilizing Loop, and Copilot does help augment that as well. And this is where, if you've been part of our previous sessions, you can use similar functions that we've done in Word, in PowerPoint, where you can start to use the power of Copilot to draft, rewrite some of the sections of these, start to create different, insert information from the web or from internally within your organization to get statistics or understandings to insert into those documents, just to help color that in, add some more meaning to it faster versus using that manual sort of efforts. But then from there, it is also able to keep stakeholders accountable to different parts of the creation process as well. So I'll show through in some of the demos how you're able to assign tasks as part of this experience as well. So it's really just at the person that you want to work through in your organization, you're able to really start to encourage that collaboration live. You don't need to wait for that Teams meeting to occur. You don't need to wait for them to respond to that email. These are going to create alerts to bring people into the conversation to try and get the information you need to accelerate those projects and accelerate that content faster. When it comes to the DNA of where Loop sits in the ecosystem as well, it's really about brainstorming. It's about creating these ideas. How do you bring people into the same space? Understanding that we're probably working in different locations these days. It's not a traditional office environment a lot of the time. We're not sitting there with one whiteboard. We're all discussing the same room. But how do we have as tangible that experience through digital means? So how do we have that shared workspace where we can start to put ideas down on the table, start to interact with them, and start to mature them over time as well? So Loop is really critical to the evolution of that in the digital workspace. And then, as I mentioned, Loop, the clue's in the name. It's around that cross-app syncing. It's about bringing these different, what they call Loop components, so sections of a larger document, across to different apps, so you're able to interact with it, not just in the Loop page, not just in Word. You can actually put these into an email and people can respond back in that email itself, which I'll do my best to display that today. And that'll then give them a chance to quickly respond if people are on the run, or if they're just looking at their the emails with their phone. They can then respond in that email and it'll update that document as well. So it's not as rigid as the Word experience also. So quite a few scenarios. It's also quite early on in the life cycle of Loop as well. So it is evolving really quickly. So that's where we really love having sessions like this, so we can explain where it's come from, where it's going, and hopefully give some ideas how you can get the best out of it now. But getting hands-on and working with the KMT team with the evolution of Copilot and the evolution of these apps just means that that investment that you're making in your technology is just going to become more and more and more over time versus just a moment in time. Everything's always evolving, and we want to make sure we're on that journey there together as well. But what I want to talk about as well is these are really the principles that, if you've been part of these sessions before, I do really want to make sure that we keep focusing on how do we have the right ingredients when we're working with Copilot or any artificial intelligence technology to get the right response back as much as you can the first time. Whilst there is the opportunity to interact with your generative AI tool, so Copilot in this case, the more interactions you have as part of that same conversation, sometimes further away from the point you can get that's what they call hallucinations. Copilot is pretty straight down the line with this, but other technologies can start to hallucinate after 3 or 4 interactions. So the closer we can get to the mark the first time, the more likely that second interaction is going to be meaningful for you rather than getting further away from the mark for you. If we think about some of these really consistent prompt ingredients that Microsoft has prescribed, we really want to think about what is the goal at the end of the day of what we want to produce here. Do we want it to just be in a bullet point form, as we've said here? Do we want it to be a formal paragraph? How do we want this response to be? Just setting those parameters up front. Second of all, what's the context? Why do we need this and who's involved? So we can start to limit down the scope of where Copilot is looking in order to start gathering information within your tenancy. Similarly, if we complement this by actually telling the source of where we'd like Copilot to look from, so the themes, but also specifically in which apps or which file types we want it to look at, it's going to once again really narrow the focus to make it more specific to what you want and the expectations of what you want it to be. And then finally, how do you want that to be produced? So you may have requested 3 to 5 bullet points, but do you need it to be simple? Do you need it to be short? Are we writing a formal email that we don't want to really redraft when we send it on to our managers or a different audience? This is where we can start to assign these different elements to make sure that the end result that we get from Copilot will be as close to what we can use without having to make multiple redrafts or multiple re-efforts there. So hopefully saving us a lot of time. So that's what sort of set the scene. Hopefully you've understood a bit more about where Copilot sits in the ecosystem. We'll focus on some of these prompt ingredients while we get started, but I might head over to my M365 environment. We can get started looking at some live demos of how to utilize Pages and Loop. So there are a few different terms in here that will sort of meld together, but I'll show you how this experience works across the Microsoft ecosystem for you. So awesome. So I've got on my screen here, I've got my trusty Copilot chat app. I'll go through and I'll start to look at Loop after this. But this is all part of how we can utilize Copilot in this ecosystem. It starts to create a bit of a breadcrumb trail that will follow through on how can we use Copilot to generate that starting point for us. In the middle between Loop and Chat, there is a new technology called Pages, which is basically starting to extend how we can start to interact with the Copilot output before taking them off more formally into Loop and starting to augment it from there. So I just want to work through a couple of different scenarios utilizing Copilot for the web. So these are things you can do if you have a free license, or if you've got the free license access. You don't need a pay license to do this component. But I just want to look through some scenarios of content creation and see how we can start to work on that real-time collaboration and updating the information from there utilizing Pages and Loop as well. So I'll just be one moment. I'll just bring across a prompt that we can start to work through. And I'll just start talking to some of the ingredients that I've put in here in accordance with the advice we saw from Microsoft a few slides ago. So in this scenario, I'm acting as a marketing advisor or coordinator. And what I want to do is create an email template for a customer event to promote a cybersecurity event for small businesses, leave spaces for time, date, location, and speakers. I might also just add to this. This is based in Australia. Please add any key statistics or cybersecurity from 2025. So I just want to utilize the power of the internet with Copilot in order to make sure it can do some of the research for me, things that could potentially make my invitation a bit more compelling, and make sure I've got something that is going to sort of hit the nail on the head if people are deciding whether my event is relevant for them or not. So I'll click generate on here, see what Copilot is able to come up with for us. Perfect. So quick as a flash, we now have the initial start of our invitation. So this is where I do save a lot of time with Copilot, both the free version and the paid version. If I'm putting together a program around, say, Copilot adoption, for example, or around cybersecurity, writing these emails from scratch can be quite tiresome. I might put that job to the end of the day, might push it to the following day because I don't want to write that template from scratch. But if I use my Copilot, it'll get me to that 80% sort of draft state very quickly. And that's a lot easier to then go through and amend an existing document than writing one from scratch. But let's have a bit of a look at what it has produced here for us. So we have a subject line. Could probably get a bit more specific with the information in here. We've got a header for our information about cybersecurity 2025, what every small business needs to know. Sounds pretty good from the brief that I gave it. And then let's have a look. We've got our body email with some key stats, which is great. Average cost of a breach, $97,000 AUD. I think that's a pretty it's a pretty compelling reason to have a look into your SMB cybersecurity if it's something you haven't focused on. But most importantly, from the brief I gave it, we do have our date, time, and location speakers where we want to work through and look at this one. So whilst we don't have it at the end state of where we want to be able to send this through to our clients or send it to the sales team to start promoting just yet, we probably need to do a bit of extra work here. So I want to work with the wider sales team or the events team, different stakeholders in the business that need to contribute to this one. If I go down to the bottom of this output, I can then say edit in Pages. The Pages is relatively, for all intents and purposes, a fairly light version of Loop. It's cut from the same cloth, but it gives you the introduction of where you're able to start interacting with the output from Copilot. You don't need to copy and paste it through to another app or to Word in order to keep working. You can really just click on edit in Pages and you can start to work from here. So what it does is it gives you a quick summary of the prompt that you used at the start of the page. What we can do is just kind of delete these ones just to neaten it up so we get closer to the end result of what we want to work with. And then we're getting down to the subject line, the header, the body, etc. Now that I have this in here, Microsoft, the Copilot has already copied this across to Loop as well. So I can start collaborating that in Loop, but there are quite a few functions in here that I can start to utilize as well to speed up the collaboration. If I wanted to work alone though, and I just want to utilize it in Word, we do have some logos up the top in order to just bring this directly across to Word. So I can start using it as the word processor versus the collaborative function as much. Obviously, there's some collaboration functions in Word as well. So there's quite a few different ways, depending on how you prefer to work, to get things rolling. But if I think about event details, I'm not in the events team. This isn't something that I manage. Coincidentally, the person I want to talk to is also called Aidan Clifford. But what I want to do is then create a new line, put @ and then type my name in, or the person I want to speak to. Click Aidan, and then I can put a quick note. Please update the event information. And what this will start to do is I will receive an email. So hopefully I receive that in a few moments so I can show you what that looks like. But also they will then get prompted to access Loop in order to update the information in here. So I've really summarized what we've been able to do from one simple prompt and a couple of clicks. I've created a new email template for our marketing campaign. I've been able to loop in the next stakeholder, and then they can jump in straight away and start to amend these things. If I go across to loop, I'll just show you how that integrates as well. So now that I've gone across to loop, I've got my recent pages here. And if I just go to the most recent one, I can see that within loop, that page is already there ready to be worked on. I can see that I've tagged the additional stakeholder, coincidentally just me as well. So I can see the information that needs to be updated there. And now I know I can give a variety of different ways to instruct the next person to come through, update that, delete themselves, and then I can go through and put it into Word or whatever final format I want that to be. Now that we are in loop, however, I do have a bit more functionality at my hands to play around with. So we do have these different components, which I can click on these 6 dots here and start to move them around. So this is just the line, not too visual as far as that one goes, but we do have access to different components in here. Say, for example, if I didn't like where this was positioned, if I didn't like where, sorry, like what your learner's positioned, I can go through and I'll highlight that. And I can start to move these up and down the different sections of the email. So if we wanted to make sure people see what they learn before they see the event details, you can start to work in this components structure. So start to drop and drag them around different parts just to make sure we can speed to do that. Getting outside of the different ways that you would usually cut, copy and paste different things, similar functionality, but a bit more visual, a bit more drop and drag. So it is more related to that creativity side of the fence as well. As we are in the document too, we can lean more traditionally into our Copilot usage. So we can go through, we can highlight different areas, ask Copilot, and then say things like, rewrite this section so it is more formal. Just simple requests like that, and then you can go through and just make sure you do those quick amendments. So rather than needing to go through, do it in Word or do it through another additional request, what we have here is just now probably a bit more of a formal paragraph, including a bit more about financial years, including once again these breach statistics. It just goes to show that you can have multiple people in here at the same time, and if you've provided those instructions, that collaboration can really shine through quite quickly. I realize I'm presenting at the moment, so I probably haven't received my email because I'll be on Do Not Disturb, but I can see I did receive an email 2 minutes ago as I tagged myself. So I'll see if I can bring that across so you can just see what that looks like. But I do want to show how that loop component works in here as well. Awesome. So I have received from myself an email to myself as I'm the only person collaborating on this one. But if I start to look down, I have received that page as a loop component in this email. You can also paste these into Teams messages as well. So depending on how you want to collaborate with your team, and you can see all of the information we're working on is here. What is really cool is you can also see that the updated Copilot prompt that I did a few moments ago has updated in this. So this is all live information from that page. In addition to when I've tagged myself and put, please update the event information, I can go through in that email, delete that part and say 26th of September, for example, 25. I've updated that. So hopefully if I minimize that window, look back across here, it's also updated it in that loop component within that page as well. And chances are
that's amazing. That's like quite different to, the past. So that's just, being in your email and being able to update a loop page. That's
great.
So
rather than sending an email saying, please go into the Word doc and update this, you're making sure that there's pretty limited chance for error. They can update that straight away. So you're probably taking out different stages and even hours when it takes for people to navigate their inbox, navigate different parts. If you put it into a Teams message to say, update the date details, it can be done within 30 seconds, whereas everyone's busy. It may take the rest of the day otherwise. Going back to the pages within Copilot as well, we can see that the information is updated live within there as well. So it is a similar experience across the board, which I think is pretty cool. Awesome. So that's our invitation. I just wanted to show a couple of other scenarios as well. So if I go back to my Copilot chat scenario, just click on a new chat. One of the other things I just want to sort of show a bit more around, similar in the sales and marketing side of things, but hopefully a bit more visual into how you can start to collaborate, not just on a text-based invitation, but hopefully something that's a bit more around how people would generally collaborate in things like projects or sales plans and stuff like that. So the prompt that I've put through here is create a comprehensive go-to-market strategy to help build out and assign roles to a sales and marketing team, including a table for deliverables, owners, due dates, and key success metrics. I've given Copilot quite a lot of license to do the thinking on this one. I haven't been too prescriptive. The more prescriptive you are, the closer it's going to be to probably what you need. But just to help visualize this today, let's have a look at what is being created. So I've got our go-to-market strategy. We start from the top. It's got our sort of breakdown, strategic overview, team structure, etc. I really like that it started to include different functions within the team, role title, responsibilities. Also a deliverables table. I didn't give it any, I could give it a sort of, I wanted to deliver it between July and June 2025, 2026, if I wanted to be more prescriptive to like the Australian financial year, but it has given me some dummy dates and a column to work through for due date just to get started, which is cool. Break it down, and then some key success metrics as well, so we can start to adjust those depending on what our company goals are. So if I once again click to edit in Pages, I can go to the top here. I might just leave all of that there for the time being. But similarly to how we were working before, we've got our table here, we've got the role title, we've got the key responsibilities. What we probably want to do is start putting in people's names in here. So we can have stakeholder, for example, or team member. And this is where, once again, we could start to go through and at different members of it. I don't want to send heaps of notifications to my team at the moment because they might start jumping in while we're live on the call. So I'll just keep putting myself into these ones. And once again, I would then receive an email notification that I've been tagged in this one. So I can then put into the key responsibilities. This is what it is. Please update with anything else or any other tasks that I want that to do as well. As you can see, quite easily within these tables, you can just hover over the top, click that plus button, and it'll create a new column for you. So the what you see, what you get components of these tables is quite a bit more flexible than, say, Excel. Working in tables in Word can be quite troublesome as well with controlling the size of the columns and just the appearance of it. So this does help out with that collaboration piece, and it is a bit more sort of reactive in how you can pick things up, move them around, and just making sure you're not too caught up in the process or caught up in the functionality, and you get to focus on being creative and getting the outcome that you want as well. There's a lot more in here, so you can keep playing around. You can move these structures around as a whole. You can then export it to Excel if you do want to work in Excel, if it is getting a bit more financial. And then you can also do things like copy page link to here if you do want to then reach out to a team member and bring them directly to that part on the page as well. If I have a bit of a think around what else we can do in here, I might go over to my loop component as well. Once again, you can see that it has pasted it across to loops, so I can work in here if I want that richer experience. There's a few different areas that I can work with at the top of the page. I can start adding in cover photos. If this is a long-term document we want to be working on, want to make sure it's got that look and feel so everyone enjoys working in there. But then probably more so be looking at what else can we insert into these tables. We can start to draft page content with Copilot. If it's a really long document and I'm a new team member, I want to get up to speed, I'll click on summarize to see what it comes up with, to see what we're able to extract from this one. Let's summarize this page. We'll see what Copilot does as if everyone's collaborating in here over the course of like a sales week or a get together. We can come in here and just summarize all of the team's meeting notes. That's actually another aspect you can do, is you can connect this to your team's meetings. So you can say within the Teams Copilot, set up loop pages off the back of each weekly team meeting, for example, and that'll come into here in a way to bring it together. Just a little bit harder for me to demo that one today.
Hey, Aidan, really, while you paused, just one little
Sure.
question from the audience, if I may. So this one is from Chris, and Chris is wondering if you can configure it so that instead of sending emails, I know you said before you can send an email or you can drop it into Teams, I think you said. Is there a way to configure it as such that when you're tagging the team member, it only sends it to the team member via Teams?
I'll need to double check that one, Chris. It's a good question. I was trying to find the answer before the meeting, but I'm pretty sure you would be able to, because when the extension of this experience is when we start to talk a lot about agents, which people may have heard of, but it's specific actions to sort of do repeatable actions like sending out emails or sending out notifications. And Teams is definitely one of the channels we can configure to use within that agentic experience. So I'd be pretty confident that we'd be able to turn off these notifications for email or turn them only on for Teams, or both, because I think there are scenarios where we want to make sure that people get notified as quickly as possible so we can send out these emails on time so that we can get these plans built out on time. So maybe that'll be something like, if I can take that question away and I'll bring that back for you, but I'd be pretty confident that you would be able to configure that.
Great, thank you.
No problem. So we'll kind of go through, it's a little bit of rehashing what I was doing in the previous example, but hopefully you can see it through a slightly different lens, how we can start to collaborate together, bringing different team members in faster, but also hopefully trying to visualize it slightly differently to a more of an internal structure, then creating an email for marketing purposes. Now we're starting to collaborate on how do we build out this department? How do we really start to get the ball rolling and start to have that structure as a team? The last one that I probably want to sort of visualize today is probably starting a new chat, a similar sort of one, but is just from a slightly different lens once again, just to show how Copilot will probably visualize it, but also from how we can start to interact with it in Loop, is building out like an account management plan. For if we're in a sales team, we want to build a customer account plan. This time I want to generate a project plan with relevant stages to discuss sales strategies, customer success, marketing and support, and using tables where appropriate to assign resources. So what I wanted to do with showing this scenario is just by putting in these different parameters in the prompt, hopefully we're able to see Copilot is able to create something slightly different, similar sort of genre, but hopefully creates a bit of a different way that we can structure how we can then collaborate within Loop and then decide how we want to prioritize from here. As we can see, it's created this very quickly, which is always awesome. There have been quite a few updates to Copilot around the speed to output, which is great. It's broken it down in a pretty clear way, which we can probably see is going to cross over to Loop pretty well as far as the different tables that have been built out, different resources that are needed. So some really clear ways that I can start to then bring in different stakeholders, put in different asks, and what are the objectives that we want to cover off, whether it's in a meeting or people working by themselves and then collaborating afterwards. To kind of help just with people who do have a paid Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, you can then go through and ask to export it in different functions to different apps. But as we're talking about Loop today, let's once again go through our edit in Pages scenario. Once again, we've got the owner there, that is me. Let's pretend it's the other me, so I can go through and update myself. So we're prompting that email that we saw on the other side. Doesn't seem to upload my name for some reason, but is it going to do that? We can power on. Also, maybe that's probably a good test for me, actually. Maybe it's just because it's internal in a cell table there, whereas if we do it outside the table, that's probably where I need to prompt myself that time. So another thing for me to test on the back end, but as you can see, this is where we are building out these tables. We're starting to get a project overview, starting to bring down, once again, I'll just sort of visualize how we'd be working if you want to add a new column. Very easy way to go through this, very easy way to update the names, just going through and typing in new things. And then we do also have embedded straight away. You don't need to build a table and build a filter on top of it like you would in Excel. You're then able to go through go through some of the different ways to auto fit columns, change column type to different numbers straight away, and change the ascending order depending on the format of that table as well. So hopefully it is a bit more simplified than having to know how Excel works or how to then create those tables, which are a bit tricky in Word. But it's creating these different components that you can then copy and paste across to the different apps or whatever the final stage of that content is going to be. So if you are putting it into a proposal in Word, it'll be able to be copied and pasted straight away. Or you can create the fundamentals of the table, bring it across to Excel if you need to do that advanced analytics from there. But ideally, it's creating a bit more of a platform to then go through and encourage that collaboration across the teams, encourage different ways to use Copilot as well. Just finally, just to show the final example once again of bringing it across to Loop. Once again, you can see that this page has been brought across from Loop. Sorry, I just had a bit of a hiccup. Not a demo unless there's a couple of hiccups, but we can see that this customer account plan overview has been brought here. Once again, we can do things like highlighting areas. Click on the Copilot side of things, where we can start to either summarize the documents, look at different formats within that document, or what we're trying to do there is highlight the area, click on the plus area, and then we can draft in the page to create new content at scale with Copilot as well. So what I might do is just finally just click on draft on this page, add in a quick brief how the team will collaborate across 3 weekly sessions, being led by your manager. A little bit improvised, so I could probably work on this over time, but I just wanted to show how we can go through and use Copilot to then draft and augment from this, because we are trying to bring together a few of the different experiences that we've discussed over the past few sessions of how do we draft with Copilot, how do we summarize with it, but now more importantly, how do we start to bring in the different ways that we can collaborate across the different Loop components. And as you can see, it sends that email through to my email address where I can start to interact with it straight away. And we can continue to build from that Copilot generation, whether it's from the chat, whether it's internally within Loop, or then refining and then bringing in new stakeholders to collaborate at speed there as well. So I think that's probably the last one that I had for today, Sarah. It's a relatively simple but powerful platform, but it does require a little bit of driving around in order to find your sweet spot of how you utilize it as well. Yeah, I'm not too sure, Sarah. Do you think you'll be utilizing a bit more Loop day to day from here, or any questions?
Yeah, so it is opening my eyes up to where I might use it. I've seen the marketing team at KMT heavily use Loop and Pages to develop some of their events and whatnot. Um, I have a question from the audience, and it's interesting. It's from Andrew. Not that it's interesting that it's from Andrew, but more so, Andrew, your question. I had just asked Copilot in the background that same question. What? So, Aidan, what is the main differences between Pages and Loop? Because we noticed that you were sort of moving between the two of them very fluidly, then in using them in partnership. When I asked Copilot, it sort of suggested that Pages was more of a publishing tool, so you're more endpoint, and Loop would be more your project management side of things, or where you're assigning tasks. How do you see the two as being different, and do you always use them together? But furthermore, just to tag on that, Andrew's thrown in there a new word that I'm not aware of. And how do they both compare to Notion, Notion? So I'm not sure if you're aware of that tool, but I'll throw to you for an answer.
Yeah, sure. Well, I might focus on the Copilot and Pages and Loop part of the question. I'm not familiar with Notion though, but I'm guessing it's a third-party collaboration or a different party collaboration product outside the Microsoft ecosystem. But let me know about that one, because I do mostly focus on the Microsoft products versus comparing across the market. Where I would see, if you do know your Microsoft apps, I would say that Loop is a sort of a subset of OneNote. So it's kind of like a really heavily collaborative updated version of OneNote, but it's a little bit lighter than some of the capabilities of OneNote. Pages is kind of the beefed up collaborative version of Copilot Chat, but from those journeys, they're getting towards the same end of town in what they're bringing together. If I was going to be putting my betting hat on, I'd imagine that Microsoft will be bringing a lot of these experiences together over time. It's just at the moment they're in slightly different brand names or slightly different experiences. But fundamentally, what they're trying to do with Pages is get Copilot exports to a collaborative state and a way that you can edit it faster versus needing to manually copy and paste across to, okay, I've got this text, I need to copy it to Word, I've got this table, I need to copy it to Excel. It's giving you an opportunity to interact with it live to make sure that you can get it to a better future state there. The main difference really in the two platforms, because as you've seen from the demo that I had, that they do have similar functionality in the way that I use them, is that Pages is a bit more informal in how you're able to achieve that end result. So we do have some ways we can interact with a lot of the details in here, and it is getting richer over time. But within Loop, you can then start to create your personal workspaces. You can create multi-page sort of areas. So if you had a marketing plan, you could have the marketing workspace with just this, and it's permanently saved in there, versus a list of separate pages, so kind of informally indexed from here. So I'd say Loop is where you'd probably host things more permanently for that ongoing collaboration. Pages is where you're looking to get things done more quickly, but obviously that would be bringing it across as a page into Loop. But then from there, I would encourage you to sort of triage it to the right place that you want to store it long term. So fundamentally very similar, but Loop is the more advanced version of the tool.
Great, thank you. So we've actually got an action-packed October. So in October, we've got 2 webinars coming up, both around Copilot. We're starting to take a look at Excel and Outlook and then Excel in a more in-depth way. So we've already run some series earlier in the year on both of these applications, which are on demand on our website if you want to go there. But we're going to dive deeper. So we found that there was a lot of interest around these 2 topics, and Aidan's going to become more of a subject matter expert and just kind of really deep dive into those ones for us. The first one is in the first week of October. I can't remember the date of the second, but it's towards the end of October. Then in November, we have an even kind of more in-depth workshop coming up. This is where we're going to be bringing these tools, Word, Copilot, Excel, bring them all together and see the real power of AI across all of those tools. So particularly useful for those of you that have come with us on the whole Copilot workshop journey all year. You won't want to miss out on that one. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we're bang on time. We're about to finish. There's no last questions I can see. So I just want to thank you for joining both Aidan and myself, Aidan from Pax8, our Microsoft expert, and for joining me from KMT. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time, and we hope to see you along next time.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. Finally, from that perspective, and one of the apps we're talking about today if you're like me, as long as you've been a student, even if well, a little while ago now, but as long as you've been in the workplace as well, chances are you've been using some of those apps at the bottom of the screen. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, more recently Teams, and now probably from today, more recently Loop, hopefully. So there are quite a lot of muscle memory that's reducing down the barriers to entry to getting success with AI versus needing to understand what the technology is, where is my data, and how does the tool work, which can take quite a lot of time to bring so many people on that journey. So Microsoft, I think, is in a really key position to reduce the time in order to get that return on your investment back, which is, I think, a great thing for us to break down a bit further today.